Did you ever feel like the person in your life didn't love you because they didn't come back? Did you ever see that, hey, they never came back, which somehow must mean like they don't care anymore? They don't love. Like, how is that possible? Like, we had years together. We had 6 years together. We had 6 months together. Like, what is actually going on? Every relationship that I've had before, like, we might have broken up or we might have had like a bit of a distance, but then we always came back and figured it out, or we decided, hey, this wasn't working, but they just disappeared. What does that actually mean? Why aren't they actually coming back? What's going on? If you guys don't know what hoover is, we're going to be talking about how narcissists hoover, and how a lot of times when we're talking about narcissists hoover, it happens often. It happens a lot. But sometimes it doesn't happen. And that ends up confusing people a lot of like, why didn't they come back? Did they not love me? Did they not care? Like, was I not good enough to get hoovered? Was I not good enough for them to come back? Did they not love me enough to actually try? I want to dive into that a little bit today to give you like an idea. And we're going to talk about two main types of hoover, and that's regular hoover and then also reverse hoover. And also give you an idea of like what it actually is and how it actually applies. If you guys are new here, I'm a narcissist, and I'm on this channel to provide awareness, growth, healing, and change. And I'm on here trying to be self-aware, saying like, hey, this is my journey. You know, from now being at the time of this recording, like almost 2 years into therapy, every single week, like going, trying to figure out how to continue to work on changing, modifying, and changing the story that I'm believing so I can change my life. And that's how I try to work with people, to help them see how they can change their life, how they can go back and they can see, hey, what I'm believing is a false reality. I need to change my perspective and I need to grow, heal, and change in this way. And we're able to work with a lot of people on a day-to-day basis, whether that's just in coaching, like one-on-ones, whether that's with coaching events or meet and greets or different workshops that we're doing. We're able to work with people to try to help them understand that process of changing that story in order to be able to change their life. And it's amazing to see when we put them through a system, when we put them through a process of like, hey, this is the tool that you're going to use to help rewire your mindset of how that healing, growth, and change starts. Part of that, would love to reach out. Please reach out at rawmotivations.com. Would love to interact with you. Would love to talk to you. If you want to see other people that are growing, that are changing, and that are also supporting and helping others, then check out the NARC app. Just type in NARC. What it stands for is Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Community. Community of like-minded people to help you grow, heal, change, and develop. And you can go on there and you can look at the courses. You can go on there and you can see the 9 characteristics of the DSM-5. Healthy dating after abuse, boundaries, how to process the guilt, the lies the narcissist tells, a lot of different things that are on there. You can track your no contact. You can record your truth. You engage in our weekly lives and our monthly coaching where we have coaches come from all over the globe to be able to help impact you and help you grow and move forward and develop even more. Would love to be able to have you part of that. Just download the NARC app. Follow us on any of the social medias, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're everywhere. Just look up Raw Motivations. I'm super excited to be able to interact with you and be able to help you along your journey. So what is hoover? Okay, what is hoover? So a hoover is the idea, it comes from the idea of almost like a vacuum, of like suck you back in. The narcissist wants to suck you back into that toxic relationship, to be able to get back involved in the toxicity that was happening in that relationship, whether that's through the words, whether that's through violence, whether that's through the manipulation, the emotional abuse, the physical abuse, the financial abuse, whatever it might be. The goal is to get you back in their life, to be able to abuse, reuse, and go back through the whole thing. If you didn't know, that's what we talked about this morning with the video that came out earlier. So when we talk about hoover, a lot of times we talk like, hey, narcissists come back. Like a lot of times when you leave a narcissist or when they leave you, don't be surprised if they don't come back in your life a month later, 6 months later, 6 years later, because oftentimes it happens. This is why we talk a lot about block, ghost, go no contact. So there's no way for them to come back in. And what happens is you hear like almost 99% of the time narcissists come back, and then you have several people that are like, wait a second. The person that was toxic in my life, they didn't come back. Either one, that means they're not a narcissist, or two, that means I wasn't good enough. Well, what you have to remember is narcissists operate in a lot of different ways. We're just saying a lot of times what's normal or what we see often to try to help prepare everyone. I would rather you be prepared, at least to make sure that you have boundaries in place so this person can't get back in your life and they never come back, than not be prepared and all of a sudden you get hoovered and get sucked back in. Because you'd be surprised more often than not, when people have their guard down, when people have the door open, the narcissist walks back through. and ends up controlling, manipulating, moving back in, anything like that. So what I want you to understand first off is that when we're talking about hoover, it doesn't mean that the person cares about you. Because oftentimes people are like, they didn't come back, so that must mean they didn't care about me. Well, that's a good thought to think. In reality, that is the truth, period. They didn't care about you. They didn't show it. They didn't demonstrate it. They didn't live that way. They didn't care about anybody. All they cared about was the mass that they're producing, then infatuation with the self, with the version that they're putting out there. So when the narcissist didn't come back, it means they didn't care. If the narcissist came back, it means they didn't care. There's not an aspect of a hoover that actually invokes any aspect of care. It's all about control. And they'll tell you they're coming back and they're going to change. They're going to get better. They'll say they're going to be committed and like, we need to go ahead and get married and I love you so much. Like all this stuff will happen really fast. But at the end of the day, they'll go back to their behaviors because they're not coming back because of changed behavior. They're not coming back because they're extra committed. All they're coming back is to try to extend their stay in your life, to be able to keep you on tap, to be able to have you be the next person or the transitional supply or anything like that, to be able to manipulate and to be able to control you. A hoover does not care. So there's two types of hoover that I talked about. Let's talk about like the regular one. Okay. So a lot of times this is where they just come back into your life, right? Like this is where they blow up your phone, where they're calling you so much, where they're texting you, where you can't like get any work done because they just want to come back. And a lot of times they'll come back and they'll be there and begging on their knees, like, please let me back. Like, I'm sorry. Like they'll say a bunch of stuff, right? Oftentimes they'll be like masked with the idea of like love bombing, giving a ton of gifts, be like, I'll spend time with you, like future faking, like, hey, we'll do this. Like all this stuff will happen inside the relationship of like, hey, like I'm back. Like we're going to work on this. Like I promise, like I'm going to grow, I'm going to change. And they're going to tell you that they care so much. They're going to tell you that they care about you, that you're the best person ever, that you're the only person from them, and they can't believe they did that or they made that mistake or that you pushed them away. Like whatever it might be, they're going to do whatever they can to come back and change. And they're going to try to change as far as like produce this fake change. A lot of times you'll see a narcissist will promise change. Like, I'm going to get better. Like, give me one more chance. And you don't start to put the pieces together until it's the 20th chance. Until it's the 15th time that they've cheated and come back. Until it's the 10th time that they've kicked you out and then they've let you back in the house. A lot of times a narcissist will try to hoover and come back into your life by promising change and by trying to say like, hey, like this is what I'm going to do. The problem is they're not able to show you. Not able to show you them actually making change. Because their version of change is coming back into your life, sweeping it under the rug, and going back to how life was. Life can't be the same. Otherwise, it'll keep going back to the same abusive cycle time and time and time again. Oftentimes, you'll have a narcissist come back in, and they'll promise you things, but they'll also get to the place of like, hey, like it was a dumb mistake. Like all I could do is think about you. Like, please, can we go ahead and get married? And you'll see that hoover come back hard and heavy of like, oh my gosh, they finally figured it out. They love me now. They've been cheating on me for 6 weeks, but they love me now. And now they want to get married, and people do that. And so you have to be careful. If you've been broken up with a narcissist and they come back to hoover you back in, they might promise you some crazy stuff. Marriage, kids, be devoted, and they'll try to win you back. All those different things that are happening. You're like, wow, this is actually real. And a lot of times it's fake because it's just a hoover. It's just trying to get back in your life, to manipulate, to control, to check whatever box, to give you, to put a small investment of like, hey, you want marriage? I'll give you marriage. Now we're back to abuse because now I have you. That's the regular idea of like hoover. What you have to remember is a lot of times narcissists are addicted to supply, of course, but they're also addicted a lot of times to the chase. They're addicted to getting another person. And oftentimes you'll see this where narcissists will chase and chase and chase and then finally get you, maybe wear you down, break your boundaries, like get through the things that you've tried to put to protect yourself. And once they get through, they're like, whew, done, awesome, check that one off, next. And they go to the next person. Because a lot of times they're not at a place where they can emotionally, mentally, like physically actually go through and be like, okay, now I've learned about this person. Now let me help like invest in this relationship. It's just about let me get through, let me chase, let me absorb all the information I have, and then all of a sudden once that's done and I've learned everything and they're good, then they no longer have any interest in me, they're boring, I'm going to move on to try to find someone else. And a lot of times you see the narcissist that addicted to the game, that cycle, the push, the pull, the idealize, the value, the idea of like, let me push you away and then let me see if I can get you back. Let me do this. Let me see if I can get you back. A lot of times when they do the push-pull, there starts happening where you start reaching out more, especially with silent treatment, some gaslighting, things like that. You start reaching out more. Of like they pull away, they get silent, and you're like, wait, I did something wrong. Let me go find them. And what the narcissist slowly finds is over a period of time that you keep coming back every single time. So they're like, wait a second, now I can pull off even a reverse hoover. I can make life really awful for them. I can leave and I can just sit back and I can wait. Because I know after everything that I've planted in the relationship that you're going to come back. And a lot of times this is based on the pattern of the people that come back to the narcissist. Like in the relationship, that push-pull, and the narcissist kind of sitting back and then you reach out. Same idea with reverse hoover. Narcissist discards you, walks away, and then you can see like, wait a second, like they're still around. I still don't know in my life. Maybe I should reach out. And you end up reaching out to try to make it feel better, or try to smooth it over, get closure, whatever it might be. And they're like, ha, I got you again. You say they position themselves to be able to have that where it's going to happen, where you're going to come back. A lot of times people think like, oh, it's just out of chance that we like ran into each other. Like, no, like it's typically not, especially if you're talking about a reverse hoover. It's typically where they position themselves where you're going to run into each other, where you're going to see each other, where you're going to see them. And eventually you're going to reach out because like, are you following me? Like, what's the problem? Like, are you stalking me? Like, oh, I saw you the other day. Like, they try to do that so that you're the one that initiates. A lot of times they'll watch your social media, try to be able to glean information like, oh, are they actually happy? Like, what's actually going on? But they know if they trigger you in certain ways, maybe you'll reach out. Sometimes they'll reach out to friends or to family just to be able to get you to react. And then in their minds, I didn't reach out. They reached out to me, which shows that they still want me. So I want you to get from this is like, if you've been in a toxic relationship and you've gotten out and you're wondering and you're kind of questioning yourself of like, why don't they love me? Like, why didn't they come back? Like, if you've been with a narcissist, they didn't care to start off with. That's the cold hard truth about it. And the other thing you have to understand is even after they didn't care to start off with, if they did come back, it doesn't mean that they care. All it means is they're trying to extend their stay in your life and try to be able to confuse you, manipulate you, and control you even more. If you're dealing with that today, would love to talk to you. Go to rawmotivations.com, click on the one-on-ones, schedule a time. We can sit down, we can talk, we can go through the traits, we can go through the things that happen to give you an idea and a perspective of what you've actually been going through and to try to give you clarity from the crazy making.